So this is the Dr. DJ podcast brought to you here by LGBG, Let God Be God. I'm here today with my guest, Kia. My sister. So I think for our audience, recognizing that Dr. DJ podcast is an opportunity to kind of have real conversation about real life and what's happening. So right now I'm kind of in a unscripted moment to talk about like attitudes. Like right now I'm in a place of like gratitude. I feel like this past week has been about shifting and cutting things out. And really just wanted to, I've had a long conversation with you about this process, about changing one's attitude, having different perspectives on life, trying to be fulfilled, finding sense of peace. And so I think this week has been a huge shift. And so I just wanted to bring you here because you've been like a spiritual giant for the past couple years. So
Not too much.
So how's everything going with you?
Everything's fine. I mean, I think I'm finding my niche, like, as far as like my career and, finding, as far as when it comes to myself, I've been doing a lot of, introspective work, and I've kind of, been on this journey of, professional and personal development. So I think I've been doing pretty well. This past week has been great for me. I've been focusing on family. So always a reflective space when, you're looking at like mirrors of yourselves and like where you came from, family kind of helps bring you back to that. So.
All right. So this week we teach. I taught at Quinnipiac this week, or I teach at Quinnipiac. And so this week's class was about like self-discovery. And I really challenge the students to think about their whys. Like finding why, processing the why, finding purpose, but also starting with the question of starting with your why. And I think I posed that question to these young scholars, and they had a hard time, like answering the question of why is it important to start with your why. And if I don't know what you're gonna say, but I'm interested in seeing what you feel about like why do you start with your why.
I've always had trouble with that. Honestly, it doesn't strike me as odd that they struggled with that, but I feel like, that's a journey, like to discover your why. It's not like a question that you could just answer off the bat. You have to really go through life to figure that out. Like, unless you've been shaped as a child from day one, like, this is why we do this, and it's not really on your own accord, but you have to go through some fire to get to what's like drawing that passion out of you, why you do the things that you do. I think for me, I've always been a very sensitive person. So like I'm big on family, I'm big on legacy, when I close my eyes and I'm within myself, I'm speaking to, my ancestors and like, listen, let me pass the baton, like give me the baton so I could pass it to the next generation, to continue what, you've started. Let me keep going in that direction, so that's like indebted in me, but as far as like in a worldly view, externally, I think the drive sometimes is financial. It could be, it's mostly family for me. I'm not big on anything else. Like when it comes to my family, I always wanted to be able to give and, bless them with experiences. So, I'm a single woman. I have no children. And I think that when
You'll have some soon.
God willing, I receive it. I want to have a strong family unit,
That's how you get it.
So
Receive it.
yes, I definitely receive it. So, I mean, yeah, my why, I think I'm still building on my why.
So I liked you said that because actually because you actually answered a separate question. So and I think when the students got confused, it's like, when I said, why do we start with why, it made me think about like a childlike moment. Because kids ask why. My daughter asks me why all the time. Like, why? And part of that is curiosity. Part of that for me would be thinking critically, like, why am I doing this? Or even if I'm asked to do something, why? Like, why are you in my class? Why? Like, why don't you challenge? Why don't you ever? That's the start. Finding the why is something different. It's like, okay, let me figure out why I'm doing this. And the dopest line I hit him with, and I'm like, I have one or two moments a day. I told them that as they interrogate life and they can interrogate their whys and try to find their whys, your why is at the beginning and the end of your boundaries. So it's like you draw this circle. You kind of have an idea of everything that's in between. But then when you get to that point, it's like, I don't know. That is where the real why is.
You brought something up when you said something about critical thinking. And it's so funny that you and Chris were talking about earlier about taking these pauses.
Chris, the audience don't know who
Chris, the fourth wall. But yeah, it's my brother. And you're talking about long pauses, and I find myself as I get wiser to take those pauses, right? To think critically of why I'm feeling the things that I'm feeling, right? Why? Like, why does that affect me? Why, when this person says it, I feel this way, but if that person says it, I don't feel that way. So when I'm at work or when I'm around new people, and there's a something that's going on internally, I'm like, why do I feel that way? And that's a level of self-awareness, self-discovery that you were talking about. And I think when we get to those points and we're like figuring those things out, that is us doing the work. Like us really trying to dig deeper. And I think once you dig deeper to find that reason, then that's a point, to get to the end, to find your why, which as you were talking about. So I really think that it's really wise to think critically, to, a lot of times we respond to people and we're not really actively listening to what's going on internally and around us, so I think that is very important. So
we just had a God moment. So it's almost, this is an unscripted dialogue. But when that point about, even be surprised at myself talking about that boundary, I'm starting to appreciate confusion and unknown, because like LGBG, let God be God, that is that moment where I can sit on faith in this particular process, and that's a moment of prayer.
Okay.
So but I'm starting to appreciate the reality of when I don't know, it becomes more of a safer space, because I don't have to try to before, what you probably could do, let me try to figure it out. And I think that gratitude this week and that attitude shift was about, let me get out the way. Let me get out my own way. Let me not try to in our third wall, understanding like what's it like to be in the mirror, or get out the way, so not being able to see myself, but understanding that I'm going somewhere and I'm going in the right direction,
not having quite a destination, but enjoying the present.
It's almost like looking in the mirror and not seeing yourself, and sometimes I appreciate that because I don't want to know. Sometimes I want to be able, and I think I have been asking this question all week about what is the proper posture for prayer and what is the proper posture for surrendering. I was like, spiritually, I was having this difficult moment, like, how do I surrender? And I think I was able to surrender when I didn't see a vision of myself. And I was like, ooh, this is it. So I woke up this morning, like in the past couple of days, like sleep's been better, but I just no longer had to see I didn't want to see myself. And it wasn't this like that you don't like the image of yourself. I just needed to not have a vision for myself, so I can allow my creator to be in space. Like last week we talked about, I don't know if we talked about that. So one of the themes was let God be God, but also, and I'm assuming this was the last podcast that we did this, understanding that God is the director, parents are the producers, and you're only the editor in your life. It's the most you can ever be. You can only edit what exists. And the reality is, if there is supposed to be a story told, the best you can do is just make edits to the director's creation. And that's all you can do. You'll never be, I don't believe in my ontology and social values, I never believe that I can actually be the director. I can try to gain control, but I can't. I try to get out the way.
So it's interesting that you say that. I think for me, and I had a conversation with my uncle the other day, and he said something about those who are anxious live in the future.
Mm.
And he said, those that are peaceful live in the present. And it really resonated with me because I deal with anxiety, right? You know, and when I am trying to get to the destination and I'm trying to make all these plans, right? I don't feel well.
Mm.
It's like I'm trying to be too calculated and I don't know what to expect. And I'm trying to put plans in action so that I can get to that destination. But I'm blindsided because I don't know what's coming. Right? So when something comes and it's not to my expectation, then that puts me in a slump. But when I am present in that moment and I let go, right?
Let go and let God.
You know,
let God be God.
I can set expectations, but they're not solid. You know, like I have vision, but I'm not worried about the outcome. You know, one of my mentors, you know, I work in sales, and they were telling me about, you know, when you're getting on the calls, don't have an expectation that you're going to get this booked. Just have a regular conversation and build that rapport. And as you build that rapport, it's going to come. The bookings are going to come, right? When we are speaking with God, when we're within, when we're having those conversations, our heart is known. Our intentions are known. That edit that you're talking about, right? Or that presence, that peacefulness where you are letting go, it's an alignment with the destination. It's the belief in the faith that that's going to happen. And if we don't have the belief in the faith, we're rushing, our mind is anxious, and we're that's a low confidence. You know, so I feel like what you're saying is on point. I agree. And I think being in that moment, in the presence, is essential to how we're going to get to the end.
There, I don't know it. You might know the scripture. But there has to be one where, and it made me think specifically about my battles and the experience with anxiety. But part of that, we started the conversation, I had an expectation. I was able to see myself. I was living in the future. I was anxious about what I was attempting to run to. And we talk about track and field. They say, if you're trying to run towards something, you're probably going to slow down. So stride. He said, you need to focus on where you are at that perfect moment and plant your feet firmly down. So I thought specifically about that because the anxiety or experiencing pain in life was connected to expectation. And so part of that editing was I edited some things so that the director became more important. Because I made some decisions, felt particular pains that made me say, hey, you know, let me just focus on the director. And I think that part of that is, and an analogy wasn't just it was the young life of the why, and asking the question and being curious and trying to make those different changes that, like, the pain taught me to humble myself. And I think without that, and I think starting this, I've never followed blindly anywhere, ever. And
so it's difficult.
That's part of the edit. And that part of surrendering was that life journey. I'm in my 30s. That life journey was, now I can be more aware and conscious of my director. Getting myself out of the future and being present and allowing those. And I think that was just that was huge. And I like this past week, I've really been talking to myself about this idea of, like, I want to have a light heart but still strong feet.
Light as a feather.
And I said that because I had this feeling of just still wanting to be grounded, but lighthearted, but still walking with purpose and vibrations and impact, but not light where you just move through life flighty. Because as a metaphor, it just feels like you can just always be blown away. You can just you're just moving in the wind, and I'm like, I need
stabilization.
I need to be grounded while also trusting and believing that, okay, like this is where my soil is good here. Because when my soil is bad here, then it's bad here, and then I start having that conversation in the mirror with this person. this idea. Like I just like even the fact that the mirror's even sitting right there right now, it makes me think, what is it like if there was nothing there and you didn't have to have a vision? And the reality is that I don't think I have a lot of mirrors in my house, but in that metaphor of looking at the mirror, recognizing that life, you never ever actually see yourself. So you in my metaphor, say instead of me looking in the mirror and not having a reflection, saying I don't need to have a vision for who I'm going to be. Mm-hmm. When I walk through life, you never actually see yourself.
That is true.
You're always being directed. Mm. And so now I'm like, okay, this could now be a surrender present moment because I can't see what I can't see. Or at least I can't see this, because in this, like if we were in this little particular matrix or metaverse, you'd watch this game of yourself and the Sims walking around. Mm-hmm. Life really is about being present.
Yes, because we would do too much critiquing
without being in the mind of, how I look.
Because 100%.
The only way to figure out, we turned it over. Mm-hmm. The only way to figure out if I look good or feel good or look good is I have to see it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like, can you feel good?
No, it's so interesting because, we critique ourselves so much.
Editors.
Yes, and I feel like, it is a reason on why we can't, like we want to be a part of everything. We want to know, we want to be in the know of everything, but it's some things you don't need to know. Some things you just have to release and let it be what it is. My father, he loves James Brown. He always brings up this. He said, in the words of James Brown, it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. And you just have to just, what it is, what it is, it ain't what it ain't. You have to sit with that, because sometimes we just want to be able to just have control of those dynamics. And when we start living, because that's like kind of that future, that, futuristic thought where that anxiety is coming, and it just, keeps everything in a panic, like for me, like I can't be in a panic. I can't operate that way. So I've centered myself. And it's funny when we talk about, being in the present. Life will sit you down. God will sit you down. Like you think you going somewhere.
He gonna put you in the corner.
You get in the car. Don't start. Okay? Right? Then you get somebody to get it started, get a jump. The tires is busted. You're like, then you got to sit there and like, what? Okay, why is this happening to me? What's going on? Now you got to pay attention to your surrounding, what's going on internally and externally.
There's two divergent things right now that I'm thinking about, and I just remember before in life just thinking about relationships and also just even this week with my pastor talking about find your relationship with God. But the reality is, like the analogy of the director, who's driving the car, and who are you willing to get in the car with? I don't even care the cars. Who are you willing to get in the car with, and what position do you want? Do you want to be in the back? Do you want to be behind the wheel? Because that's difficult to even try to like even just conceptually think like where am I going?
You got to start small. Because for me, I'm gonna get in the car, but I'm gonna hold on to that little thing. I'm gonna hold on to the lever. Like I don't know where this car is going. Where you taking me? I do feel a little protection by holding on to this, But I feel like you can't. You can't jump in the car with everybody, but if you are going to get in the car, I think, building those intentions that we talked about before, like you can have the intention, you can have the vision, but you don't have to be in control of it, right? So it's kind of moving with that internal flow, like, all right, being in connection with God, having those morning meditations, like, all right, God, you know what I'm saying? This is where I want to go with my day, and this is my intentions, but, let your will be done. However, I'm envisioning this. And when we're in sync, because God wants the best for us. You know what I'm saying? So he's going to bring those opportunities to you.
I got a question, and I've been wrestling with this all week. And so in the space of kind of removing the vision, and I'm probably saying this wrong, but I'm in the feeling, removing desire, removing wants, and accepting what I have. And I have everything that I need. And so removing the desire and the want without punishing myself and feel like I'm being recluse. Like, like people always like, you have to have a vision, you have to have a purpose. And I'm like, in terms of the spiritual journey, right now I don't want to have a desire.
So in terms of the spiritual journey, right? And I think you have to call it what it is, what's going on in that moment, right? So I feel like there's a lot of things that can happen at once, and like juggling that, like right now you have professionalism, work, career, right? A father, right? And then you have internally what's going on, spirituality, relationship with God, where you're going in that. So it's like on one end, you have that vision, like, you know, I want my daughter to have, you know, a stable environment. I want her to, you know, be healthy, you know, do really good in school. You know, that's a vision in that aspect, right? But spiritually, you know, things are happening where we're in a space, because a lot of times we didn't know to go internally. So now you're going internally, you're letting go of some of those desires, you know, that you've had that fed at your soul and put weight there. So now you're like, well, I don't want this. So I don't know how to go about not having this. So now I'm surrendering.
And so I think that speaks to the process so much. So when I almost feel guilty having desires when I'm out of alignment. Like how can
100%?
It's like I'm in a season right now. It's like I need to surrender and not have a want because I think I'm out of alignment. But God's always also saying, whatever you need, ask. Because I want you to ask for me. I want you to pray for the things that you need. I want you to live abundant. He said, but I'm having a hard time because I think I'm out of alignment. I don't even want to. I don't even want a desire right now. Just give me what you think I should have right now. And I'm like, just give me my portion. I don't whatever I don't have. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But I'm like, it's a particular season where I'm like, and I think part of that is being in the mind, and you know, Virgos love to overthink. So it's like, I said, but if I'm not, how can I have desires be outside of the will? But when is it time for me to ask? Or like you get that humble space where just let me be a simple servant. But when is it okay to ask?
I think I go through that too. It's so funny you said Virgo. I didn't want to bring up Zodiac. But, you know, you talked about grounding, and we're earth signs, you know, and a lot of times our struggle in life is about that grounding, because we came here to learn that and to be strong in that, right? So we go through those processes of weakness, right? Matter of fact, I want to take that back.
You wouldn't be weakness.
As a child, I was walking at 8 months. Okay. My feet was on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. But then we get into that middle space of, you know what I'm saying? Because I moved too fast.
Yeah.
So now I have to get back to that. I got to get back to the grounding. So I had to go through some struggles to figure it out. But now I know that my feet needs to be planted. I need to be in the present, right? But I need to be open to what's going on. Because if I have to ground my feet, that means that I'm sturdy. That means that there are people around me that has expectations to lean on me because I'm sturdy. You understand what I'm saying? So I have to be open to that, you know? So I think we kind of both have struggled in that space, but also struggling with letting go, you know? So
he can edit that out. He can edit that out. Or he can keep it in.
But, you know, I really appreciate you, D. I really, you know, love having conversations this way, because it forces me to really have this introspective view of where I'm at, where I want to be, and how I'm going to get there.
TD Jakes this week had a sermon, or last week was about the principles of circumcision and recognizing space and the places that you need to go. Part of the places that you need to go, that you need to have things cut off or cut out. And I thought about that because I spent a season where, like, figuring out your circle and understanding who you allow to lean on you. Because when you have that posture of care, of giving and care, you find a lot of folks that want to lean on you, and you're trying to have heavy. The only reason you're trying to have heavy feet so that they can still catch you, and that light. And I think about that as like that kind of like that seesaw, or that I wanted to be a firm tree, tall, wide, strong limbs, so that folks can. But I never wanted to be like that. What's that? Them punching bags when you just knocked out. He said it had a solid body. He said, but all they was doing is just getting knocked around. And I felt like that because there were people that were leaning or punching, and you just open. You kind of kept yourself open. Like you just unguard. Actually, that's the perfect analogy. Whatever that thing is, that is the perfect sign of being unguarded, but with heavy feet. Because you're never able to protect yourself. It just falls and gets back up. It falls and it gets back up. But that's different than you see in those, like, I don't know, those that's in the hurricanes in Florida. You got those special trees that they do this. They don't go nowhere. I think
they're rooted.
And part of that is that's for me, that would be the strong symbol of the life that I want to have. To be weathered through this particular storm. The day doesn't need to be perfect, but you are rooted in a particular place where you're not always falling over, and you're not unguarded.
I think that comes with that spiritual awareness, though, too. Like, I
told God to be a fence this morning.
Listen,
I said be a fence. I said be a fence because I don't want to. I don't want to lose this peace and these feelings that I have, because I don't want to get there no more.
So what does that take? And I want to bring that up too, because it's like, in this peaceful space, with that attitude, what attitude does that take, that you're weathered but you're still rooted? Like,
what had to happen, or what does it feel like?
No, like when you've got here, right? So how did you get here, and what had to happen for you to stay in this space? Or what is happening?
So what happened was betrayal and rejection. To stay in this space was asking the right questions, and it started with the why, asking the right question, because I kept going to church or just in meditation, but I don't know if when someone says they meditate, don't mean you just closing your eye. It's like you have to be able to get to the place. You have to know how to get. So it's a process. So I wasn't asking the right question. I thought I was doing the right thing, but it's like going to the gym and you don't have a basketball, but you're trying to work on basketball. I was like, "What you doing? What you in here working on?" He's like, "Well, I don't. You didn't have the right shot. You didn't have the right. You just hit here doing this in the air. Like, I got this." No, there wasn't. I wasn't asking the right question. I needed a course correct. Same thing with your director or the coach. You needed someone there to be there to course correct, because the real question I had, what is the process? And not like, what is the feeling, or like even like folks to get the Holy Ghost, like, well, when do you know? It's like, I needed to understand the proper process of prayer and also surrendering. So I tell my pastor the same analogy, and those that go to my church may recognize it this Sunday. He says, you know how to surrender in your relationships, and you know how to surrender to friends and be vulnerable. He said, but you're unwilling to do that. He said, the question was, you know it, but when are you going to step into it? So I kept ignoring the fact that I was present in service. I said, but the seat that you're sitting in, you're too far from me. So it's almost like if you really had the opportunity to be close to me, then you probably won't get a better seat. I was sitting in the back row because it gave me an opportunity to decide when to leave or when I want to come up.
You had one foot out the door, one foot in the door.
I don't do well with gray. So once you get up there, you just in it. Like when you jump in the fire, I was like, that's just me. I'm like, I'm either I'll be all there or I'm all the way out. And so when I was sitting in the back row, I'm like, and I remember Pastor, he said what's fear for you like in that space? I said, to be perfectly honest, I said, if I get all the way to the front, I'm more vulnerable in my relationship with God, but I'm less concerned about everyone behind me because I can't see them. I get more weary when it's like when you walk up, they all see you now, and you weren't prepared to be seen. It just happens. So then it's more overwhelming when you make a choice that I'm going to be in front. Because he asked me questions like, "Well, you sit in front of the class and talk to kids. Don't you feel nervous?" No, because I know where I'm going to be standing. Like I already decided the past week that I'm going to teach this class from the front of the room, and so they're going to be looking at me.
So you brought up a point earlier about why you're the topic on bringing up the why to your students was about self-discovery, right? And it's so funny. My goddaughter just had her 13th. Today's her birthday, actually. But she had her 13th birthday party yesterday, and I had to go to the house to get something. So I took my godson with me, and I asked him about school, and he was telling me he was doing good. And I said, because these kids are kind of popular. They already got their little personalities. And I said, listen, I said, it's fun to have fun with your friends. I said, but you built different. You got a name attached to you, a family name, and you need to make sure that you're, doing good in school. So 2 things could be possible. You could be funny, but you also could get good grades, and putting that in perspective, I feel like, you have to have something that is for you, For me, is getting good grades, for him, getting good grades, I want to have fun, but getting good grades is stapled, right? When you talk about going to the altar, like, my spiritual journey is stapled. I don't care what everybody else is doing. What I'm here for is for my relationship with God, for my journey to move forward. So I'm the type of person, I'm going to act the fool anywhere I'm at. If it has to do with my journey, act the fool. I'm going, if I'm about to be spread out on that altar, I'm spread out on that altar. If I got to walk that journey to, past the pews, like, excuse me, get your child out the way. I'm getting to my blessing. Because I don't want to struggle. I want to stay in that present moment. I want to stay peaceful. And if anything's on my back, anything's going on, I know where I need to be. I may not know what's going to happen when I get there, but I know where I need to be. So when I had asked you, how do you stay in that peaceful space? Like that has.
It's only been a week, so let's.
No, I get it, but I think as we're going on our journey, we need to take note of those things that keep us in the space that we want to go. And I'm not saying that's always going to be the case, because we know life, it's up and down sometimes. We can't control that.
I think one of the things that you said that I thought about, and I still battle with, but I think this is something I took off the table. I no longer have to convince myself. You put the point is like, I don't care about. I remember saying that as a tool to go do what I need to do. It's almost like preparing for a fight. It's like, yo, I don't care what happens. Now you might get whooped, but right now you're really trying to talk yourself up and develop. I'm like, guys, like, why do you have to convince yourself to come see me? Why you got to say, oh, I don't care what happened over here. Now you might say that, but you're like, I know I could go bad in there. Like I can get whatever, but I have to do this self-talk to like get myself riled up. It's like, why do you have to do that to come see me? Why do you have to talk to yourself and say, hey, man, I don't care about nobody in here?
Because you're still in that phase of surrendering. Because once you fully surrender, you open.
But sometimes you don't even have to. When I go to work, I don't even have to talk to myself. I'm going to work. I don't even I'm gonna get ready for today. Now I could do some self-motivate because technically I'm self-motivated because there's some doubt. I'm like, as a process, I'm doing this because there's something else happening. Versus there's things like I have to convince myself to come here. I was like, we came here, it was unscripted. I'm like, I'm here. I'm gonna be here. So, and I think in that space, it's like when I have to convince myself, when I ask the why, understanding myself. If I have to do self-talk, something's so off somewhere. And sometimes it's important to also recognize, why is something off there? What's happening in there that you need, that your anxiety may be creeping in before a game, and I'm like, my body might not be feeling right, and so I'm going into this game and I'm like, I got this, because I'm saying that because there's a part of me that doesn't want to get caught up in this subconscious thought of like, what if I don't have this? And that's where I think that the why boundary of like removing myself from the mirror is like, well, if you have to do that, why don't you just what? That's a moment of prayer. So instead of that's a process. So instead of self-talking or grandizing to try to get confidence, that's the prayer. I substitute that to prayer. Guys, like, instead of you talking to yourself, just ask me for that.
I'm always in prayer. People don't even know that about me.
That's what I'm saying. I'm learning that. I'm not always, sometimes I'm like, my sermon, like my devotion this week was like, give me the little things too. Because when you start, I'll say as an example for me, it's like, if I'm talking to myself, I'm trying to figure, I'm using my particular tool to gain He's like, no, just give me that to me. That's, so I think part of the week is like, and then the next day comes, it goes, as you keep drawing close, I'm going to draw closer to you.
So check this out. I don't know how this is going to sound. when I say I'm always in prayer, right?
You praying now?
I'm always in prayer. I'm always in prayer because God lives within me.
You better have like a
And when
Macy Gray moment right now.
when I'm talking to myself, I know that God is hearing my prayers. It's an internal conversation because everyone doesn't need to hear that, right? It's an internal conversation because I know God is within me and God hears me.
You sound like Jill Scott right now.
So I'm like literally like I'll wake up, but I'll still be asleep a little bit, but my eyes are closed, but my mind is working, and I'm talking and I'm having this conversation about the type of day I want to have. God, you know my heart, you know what's going on. You know, sometimes my mouth will say things that I'm not even thinking at the moment, preparing me, because your body knows things about you before your mind catches up to it. Mm-hmm. You're not feeling good, but you get that somebody around you ain't using your brain, but your body giving you signs. You got a stomach ache. You're like, something ain't right. You know, we don't pay attention to those signs, right? So sometimes because I'm always in prayer, my body already know what's going on. It starts speaking for me. You know, then I have that intention, that awareness, and I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. Okay. Oh, you said protection? Okay, God. Something's working. Something's happening. So having that awareness of what's going on around you. Why do I feel this way? Those conversations are so important. And I love that's how you brought it in. I don't know if that's how you're ending, but having those internal questions.
We ended?
No, I said, I don't know. I don't know if that's how you're ending, but having those internal questions of where those feelings, where does those thoughts come from, I think is super efficient to get you. It's like a start to get you where you need to be with your journey with God. Because I think if we're not intentional about that conversation, we tend to move at our own pace, right? We're not editing. We're not listening to the director. We're just kind of in this zone of stagnation. You know, we're not grounded because we're not having those type of conversations with the internal God of our lives that we've accepted to lead us, you know. So I definitely think it's important, and I'm glad that you brought that up because it makes me feel like God, I've been listening. It's an alignment of where I've been going.
It was a change in the dialogue, a change in the conversation, a change in. Stop spending your day planning for the world and ask God what he wants for you today. I think that became the strategy. It's like, so when someone said get closer, it's like, well, it's a process though. You need something a little more descriptive. Like how are you? You have to quantify it. How close are you? How do you get closer? Because, and I think God in his design and internally in us being edited, he says you'll know what close looks like for yourself. You'll know when you're out of alignment. It's hard because you can't ask somebody. It's like someone, you have to be able to ask the right question. Someone says you'll know what close looks like.
Yes, because asking the right questions is because you're asking the right people. We talked about who's getting in the car with you, right? How do I know? When we're you know, a year or two ago, we were having conversations, and I spoke to you about my journey and how I was having experiences, and you said, "Keith, you got to close some of those doors,
close them portals."
You know, and I was like, You on to something, you know?
That disturbing this week. The dad said the devil comes and creak doors. He said it's like you left the door. Like say you're going to get your groceries and you left something in the door to come back in so you can get locked out. He said he's always waiting for the door to open. And I think that come back to that analogy of the closeness. Our process and I think just I can't say it even more. Asking the right question. I think it's that, and it's almost so it's almost so like parabled and mystiqued in some of the media movies. Like, ask the right question. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Just ask the right question, and you'll get the answer. Because I remember asking folks, I was like, Like they were smart folks. They knew they were answering a question.
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't. I wasn't asking. They were answering the question. I was asking the wrong question.
Mm-hmm.
How do I start? Well, you just. The answer would have been, but how do you surrender?
Mm-hmm.
What is so the person's response would be like, well, what do you do to do that? What is it? You have to like talk through that because I'm more process oriented, so I can follow a direction.
Okay.
But you got to give me a direction. You can't just say, hey man, show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need details.
Like if God said show up, I'm like, what you talking about? Like, but I would have to think. If I'm thinking about if it's okay in a relationship, how would I want? Okay, if you're talking about closeness and developing a relationship with God, how would you show up in a relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Do that first.
Mm-hmm.
So now and if that's off and if God doesn't give you no response, course correct.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you do to try to get closer, to be present? And that's part of that was like the mindset shift of saying, oh, well, I'm doing stuff. He's like, no, but you're not present. You're not thinking about, oh, I'm trying to be present. I'm like, I'm seeking you will find. This is
I think for me, and I think, kind of bringing all those thoughts like together, for me, knowing where I'm at, right? In order for me to really have that process and that internal dialogue, to get that closeness, I need to be real and authentic about where I am currently, right? And once I realize where I'm at authentically and currently, then I can move to where I need to be, right? Having that internal conversation with God. Like, God, this is where I'm at. Like, meet me halfway because I'm struggling. I want to be here, but where do you need me to be at this moment?
Yeah, that's the right question. Like, I want to
Who do I need to be in alignment with? Where am I going? Maybe I need to pay attention to what's around me right now. Who's around me? What doors do I need to close? What portals that are still open and that I need to shut? Because obviously I'm not getting it right. I'm walking in circles. I'm moving in circles. So where do you need for me to be? And then actively listening.
I don't know if it's the season right now, or I'm like, maybe my clarity's kicking in, or I'm at the time of the semester. But when you say the idea, I'm moving in circles, even as a metaphor, not just as a physical thing, like, what does it really mean to be moving in circles?
When you're looking at like I don't know what kind of structure it is, but it's like a point, but everything is moving, but you're still staying in the same spot. Right?
Moving in a circle.
It's like it's like you're moving in that one access point, but you're not going anywhere. Right? You want to get to that, but
I said that for the audience though.
No, okay. That's the dope moment. I had to break it down.
That's the dope moment because it's like,
yes.
I was like, oh yeah, I'm over there. And I was like, he said, but why? Why are you doing that? And who are you doing that for? He said, dude, I didn't tell you. And even ask for discernment in terms of, and this is the part of that want and desire. It was like, where are you going? And I just think about that process of like, I keep using, I watch a lot of TV, you can tell. It's that analogy in the last Bad Boys movie, right? And Will's, I don't mean to bring Will up, but Will, he has his vengeance. He's trying to, and his captain before he dies, he says, the guy's on a horse. He said, where are you going? So the horse is riding right, but where are you going? Just yells. So when you see people move, it's like, you doing a lot, but where are you going? And that's why I think had to ask me that final question of like, when I finally got the vision, he says, who are you doing this for? Why are you doing this? And I think that was the confrontation. Like, I realized happiness or peace was about trying to figure out what you are doing, who you're doing it for, and who should you be working for right now? Not as a company, but internally, who should you be working for, and how do you set your priorities in terms of these are the people I work for. These are my stakeholders, and really get intentional. So I just thought about that in the class when I asked the students the why. I probably was doing the work before, but in the past, that transformational understanding about self was it just clicked one day. I think I was in prayer and I was asking the right questions. I wasn't just praying for things to go away. Because someone said that God, he said when you pray for a particular thing, God doesn't give you what you want. He gives you an opportunity to do what He asks. So if there's an opportunity to say, well, get this person out of my life, and that person call, then He's giving you opportunity. He's not gonna make the person come out your life. He want to see what you're gonna do. He's not gonna block the call. He's gonna see what you're gonna do because I want to see if this is what you want. I need you to work. I'm gonna give you an opportunity for it to happen. I will remove it, but I have to see that you're going to do it first. Versus like, oh, you just let me make it happen. They're like, no, it's like it don't work like that.
I think it's so funny because I've said it, but I wanted to clarify it. So, I was driving and I heard this like it was spoken into my spirit, and I've been listening and going by it, and you heard me mention it tonight. Of where are you currently? Where do you want to be? And how are you going to get there? Like I was just driving, minding my business. And that was in my spirit. And I feel like it was the Holy Spirit giving me direction because I didn't know, and I've been asking, how do I get so putting it to perspective because you can't go nowhere if you don't know where you're at. When you put the address on the GPS, it starts with a starting point. The current location. Where's your current location? You need to have your current location before you can go anywhere, right? So it started with, where are you? Where are you trying to go? And how are you going to get there, right? I'm going to get there through the Holy Spirit, right? By having that trust, right? Having that trust, that surrendering, right? I can influence, not influence, but, this is my vision, God. I'm going to put it in your hands, but this is where I want to be. But I need the how to get there, and I think it's important for us to have those conversations and be authentic about our journey and where we are. A lot of times I've talked to people, and let this, maybe the gift that God has presented in me. I know when they calling the bluff, like, what I'm saying? Are you that's what you said? That's what's going on. Is that's the truth? That's the truth. That's truly where you are. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, helping, being that reflection is like, now where are you? Because that is what God is calling for you to be honest about. You said creating the opportunity. God wants to know if you know where you are. Creating that opportunity so that you can move on your journey, because we could pray all day, God, please, I want this, I need this. God gave you 2 feet and 2 hands. You got to do the work.
Yo, hold on. Before I forget this, we're going to do another episode, and one of it's going to be the devil's bluff. And the other one got to be geo-mapping the spiritual. Because when you said, I don't mean to cut you off, I didn't want to forget the idea of just the particular point in geo-mapping your spiritual journey. Deciding where the stops you need to go, asking God, and actually, because you asked that question, like, how do you get, as a process, geo-mapping your spiritual journey. And then when you said bluff, I just think back to like, I don't even folks even use that term anymore, bluffing. The thing about like the devil, all he can do is bluff. That's all he can provide. God can give an opportunity to change. The devil can only give you a bluff. Well, if you're covered, you're covered. He can only give you an opportunity at your own destruction. But you have to, same thing. You have to do it though.
100%. This is awesome. They're awesome.
That was a dope show.
I appreciate you having me. I didn't really want to, be on, but I say, listen, it's my brother.
If you're in the room, you gotta be in.
It's my brother, though.
If you're in the room, you gotta be on. Like, if you're in the room, you gotta be on. So give them your handles and talk about your other work that you do.
Oh,
you're a spiritual healer.
No, I mean, I really appreciate the time and being able to discuss, my journey and where I've been and where I'm going, with your wonderful audience. But if you want to follow me, I am definitely, I work as an esthetician in the state of Connecticut and Maryland. I am working on rebranding, but if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Lilo Skincare. That is LYLO Skincare on Instagram. You can follow that on YouTube. And yes, I'm also on Facebook, Lilo Skincare. So I think I'm Lovely Leaf Organica on Facebook, actually. So yes, that's my handles.
With that being said, we will close it up. This is Dr. DJ Podcast, sponsored by LGBG. Let God be God, and we enjoy you coming. Peace.
That was a good day. I mean, we natural.
Unscripted, though.